Welcome to PRICOM Design. Today we're going to go through some of the features and capabilities of our Dream Player Professional. The Dream Player Professional is 3.5 inches high by 4.5 inches wide. It has 4 conveniently located mounting holes in the 4 corners. It has a micro SD connector here. This is where you put in your SD cards. The SD cards are where you store your audio files. We've tested this with 1 gigabyte up to 16 gigabyte SD high capacity SDHC cards. And what you store on this is 44.1 kilohertz 16-bit stereo wave files. There's no compression involved. It literally plays full fidelity CD quality CD image files. Those files are played out through the stereo digital to analog converter. This is a 24-bit D to A. This digital analog converter feeds a stereo output jack. This is a 3.5 millimeter stereo jack. It's line level, so it's not really intended to drive speakers. You'd typically plug this into a powered speaker or into a separate amplifier or one of our other products. One of the big differences about the Dream Player Professional is that it can play multiple tracks at the same time, where our other products are limited to single file playback. This will actually play up to 6 files through that digital to analog converter at the same time. So that kind of goes through how the signal goes through. Power comes in through this terminal strip here. This is a power input. It accepts AC or DC power up 9 volts to 18 volts. 12 volts is probably about the best. And we'll talk a little bit about that in a future video. It has 4 opto isolators or optical isolators, so you can trigger your 4 separate tracks using this terminal strip as your inputs through these opto isolators. And then it also has 4 control outputs, allowing you to turn on lights, relays, motors, or anything like that. One difference you'll notice in the Dream Player Professional is these 2 modular jacks here. These are actually for the PRICOM network. That's the PNet. And what the PNet allows you to do is actually connect external input and output cards to increase your trigger capabilities. And we'll talk about that a little more in a future video. So let's do a demonstration of some of the playback capabilities of the Dream Player Professional. That's an overview of the inputs and the outputs on the Dream Player Professional. Now let's play some sounds. So here we have our Dream Player Professional connected to one of our button boards, just to make it convenient for the connections here. I have the audio output connected to some computer speakers, and then I have my power coming in. I'm using 12 volts DC to power the Dream Player. And we have status indicators, LEDs on here so that you know what's going on. I've got a file or an SD card in here with some different sounds on it. My first track, which I'll play, is actually City. So it operates pretty much the same as a traditional Dream Player, one of our normal Dream Players. I've got my different tracks here. One thing you're going to quickly notice about the Dream Player Pro One thing you'll notice about the Dream Player Professional is that it can actually play multiple tracks at the same time. So in this case, I've got a C-side track on number 4. I've triggered that playback. Turn the volume down just a little bit. And I've got my C-side. And in the middle of the C-side, I can actually trigger my barnyard. So now I've actually got a barnyard sound with chickens mixed on top of the C-side, which is a C-side data. Those are 2 of our tracks available from the website. So that's one thing the Dream Player Professional does, is it can mix up to 6 tracks at the same time. And I can add some pool sounds to that, and then actually add city buses and things like that. Similar to our other Dream Players, there is a configuration file on the SD card that allows you to set a lot of parameters, and in the Dream Player Pro there's an awful lot of things that you can actually set. So we'll go into that in another video at some point, but I just wanted to show you the basic playback. So, and like our other products, it has a capability of a background track. I'm going to switch the cards to show you the background playback. So I'll stick my SD card in, turn my power on. And right now it's starting by playing track 0, which is the seaside track. And then I've got my same barnyard on track 2, so get the chickens in there. And then a little announcement.
Welcome to PRICOM Design, the leader in audio playback devices.
And any one of those I can actually trigger. And something interesting or a great feature of the Dream Player Professional is I could literally trigger all of them at the same time.
Welcome to PRICOM Design.
So now it's
audio playback devices.
It's actually playing the 4 separate triggered tracks on top of the background track and actually mixing them all together. So there's an example of using up to 5 files simultaneously. One of the other features that we have in our Dream Players is actually the ability to do multiple sub-tracks within each one of those 4 tracks. We call this MultiRandom Mode. And so what this will allow you to do is
Track 1, Part 8.
Have up to 8 different files for each one of the 4 trigger inputs. So that was track 1, part 8.
Track 1, Part 7.
And what the system does is it actually
Track 1, Part 6.
sorts these,
Track 2, Part 1.
shuffles them into a random order, and each time it gets through the 8 tracks, it'll actually shuffle them again and play them back.
Track 3, Part 8.
So this is pretty similar to the way the Dream Player MK2 works, but the difference in the Professional, of course, is it can play all at the same time, which will be a little crazy.
Track 2, Part 7.
So I was playing all 4 tracks at the same time. Now you could combine that multi-random playback with the background, or the 0 track as we call it. So this one's actually going to be the same thing with the seaside in the background. So now we've got our 0 track playing in this background, that's the seaside. It's not using any one of our 4 input triggers to play that background track.
Track 1, Part 7. Track 2, Part 3. Track 3, Part 4. Track 4, Part 5.
And then of course we can play
Track 2, Part 7. Track 3, Part 4, Track 2, Track 1, Part 6.
So it sounds a little confusing, but actually you can actually have all different kinds of sound effects being triggered, or different sounds or actions being triggered by these different trigger inputs while mixing onto that background track. So that's an example of the background track. Now, one new feature of the Professional is the ability to hook up external input triggers. So I'm going to take this input board and plug it into my PNet jack. And what this will allow me to do is distribute these trigger boards or these input boards all around my project or my layout or my scene, be able to use these as inputs. It is a simple board. We've mounted it on a piece of acrylic just to show you how easy it is.
Track 4, Part 1. Track 1, Part 8. Track 2, Part 5.
And this cable can run several hundred feet, and you can have as many of these input triggers as you want connected to it. So this is a way for us to expand the number of input triggers beyond just the 4 that are on the local terminal strip. So there's a quick overview of the Dream Player Professional. Please visit our website for more information at www.pricom.com. Thank you.